All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. What's the latest and greatest on Brandon Aiyuk? There's always an update, and we have one today as well. And, of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Get some brisket chili. Go say hi to Damon and Mary and tell them that Krug sent you. This video is also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Check the link in the description. Use the promo code Krug, and they will match you up to your first $100. Well, there is a report out today that the 49ers had a contract on the table in April, right around the draft, that would have paid Brandon Aiyuk $25 million per year. And Aiyuk and his representatives were seeking $27 million per year. The quote, according to the source, things were close until the other receivers got the bags. And now the asking price for Aiyuk is closer to $30 million. So this is very consistent with what we heard from Aiyuk on the Pivot podcast with Ryan Clark and Channing Crowder and Fred Taylor the other day, brought to you by Fanatics.com. We had the whole breakdown of the Pivot podcast. And in that podcast, Aiyuk basically said, hey, look, there were times where this thing was really close and we were almost on the same page. And then there have been times when we've really, really far apart and we, weren't on the same page or weren't close to being on the same page. And obviously you say, well, how could that be? And how could that? Well, it's because this is a moving target and the wide receiver market has reset itself a couple times with top wide receivers like Justin Jefferson signing in the offseason, and that changed the market. So, yeah, I think Aiyuk, that's very consistent with what Aiyuk said in the podcast. He basically said in the podcast that, yeah, there were times they were really close and he thought they had a deal. And then there were times where, it seems like they're really far apart and they're never going to bridge that gap. So, and that really has to do with the fact that, it's, you had Jefferson sign in there for $35 million and that lifted the boats, and, Amon-Ra and all these other receivers that signed. Every time a big time receiver signs, that changes the marketplace. And I think that is consistent with what the 49, with what Aiyuk said. And then Aiyuk says, we haven't agreed to terms and it's been quiet for about a month. There was no contract talks, no potential movement. He said the Niners reached out to him and said, we're not on the same page and it doesn't look like we're going to be on the same page. Of course, camp doesn't begin until the end of July, and today's July 1st. So there's no real urgency. He's not missing anything today. He's not missing anything tomorrow. Now, if he's in the same spot a month from now and camp's begun, now there'll be a little bit more heat, a little bit more pressure. According to Mike Silver, the Niners offered $26 million. Sounds like that was an accurate portrayal of their position financially. And it sounds like they're closing in on it, but they're not there yet. And, Aiyuk said it was disrespectful and unfair to him to have, that $26 million leaked. I don't know if the Niners leaked it, if one of the agent leaked it, or if somebody within the Niners leaked that to Silver. I don't know. I don't know how Silver had that information. Maybe he guessed. Maybe he just took a guess and guessed right. But it is interesting that, the marketplace has changed for Brandon Aiyuk. And it's changed because Justin Jefferson got the new contract and is making more money. So, Aiyuk's, I think the Niners and Aiyuk are going to get on the right page. He had 106 targets, which is quite a bit fewer than most of the other number one receivers, but he was 7th in the league in receiving yards. He was 23rd in targets. So what's the solution? Aiyuk's like, I can do more. I've got so much more to give. Is he underutilized? Or if you ask Kyle Shanahan, is he utilized to perfection? The one thing about it is when you get less targets, there's less beating on your body. He also, you could argue that, that efficiency is really the number one thing you're looking for. And you could make an argument that Aiyuk was more efficient than Tyreek Hill. He made 28 pass receptions of 20 plus yards. Hill had one more. Hill did it in 181 targets, and Aiyuk did it in 106 targets. So who's the more efficient wide receiver? So it really is interesting to see where this is going to go. I do think it gets done. There's so many things in that Pivot podcast that tell you that it's not going to get done, right? I mean, first of all, when you listen to Aiyuk describe what the Niners said to him, hey, we're not on the same page and doesn't look like we're going to. It's almost like the Niners are telling him, hey, is it time for us to shop you? I really do believe that's all part of negotiations and being a tough negotiator. And I think that's just Parag being Parag with a month to play. They're playing hardball, and they want to, both sides are trying to win. So there's that, and then when he was asked about, are you underutilized in this offense? And he's like, yeah, I am underutilized in this offense. And they're like, well, what are you thinking about? Could you succeed in other offenses? Could you thrive in other systems? He's like, absolutely, I can thrive in other systems. I'm a true X wide receiver. I'm a true number one wide receiver. And when they asked him what he's thinking about, he said, I'm thinking about what it would be like to play with Jaden Daniels. So, so that makes you think that maybe Aiyuk doesn't want to be here. And then he was asked, would you give up everything that San Francisco represents, winning and Super Bowls and all the talent and Shanahan, to get the bigger bag? And he said, I got here by taking risks. So in other words, hey, I want to take a risk. I want the biggest bag. So another example there where he's like, hey, I don't want to be here. I want to be anywhere where I get the biggest bag. So then he was asked, are you on the right team? Potentially talking about playing with Jaden Daniels. How would it be for you if you were on the right team at the right time, at the right point in history with the right quarterback? And Aiyuk pushed back and said, hey, I've got the right quarterback. I'm in the right spot at the right time with the right team. I just need new contract terms. So it really sounds to me like Aiyuk loves Purdy. He loves being a Niner. He wants to be a Niner. He just wants to get paid, And, he said, well, how realistic is the Jaden Daniels thing? And he's like, well, we got one more meeting with the Niners. We'll see how it goes. Supposedly that meeting went well. They're on the same page and they're in the final stretches of getting this deal done. But if it doesn't get done, or if there's any halt of the momentum, or if there's any backsliding in these negotiations, it sounds like Aiyuk's, perfectly content to say, hey, trade me to the Commanders and let me play with Jaden Daniels. I mean, he came out and said that he thought that Jaden Daniels could help him take his game to the next level. So I thought that was kind of interesting, though he did compliment Brock, but he said that he thought Jaden Daniels could take his game to the next level. I thought that definitely was interesting. And, it's the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting. There's not going to be a hometown discount. Niners are not getting a hometown discount. So, hey, there was that whole idea. Maybe he'll take a hometown discount. Nope. He's like, I'm about me. I'm about getting my money. I'm not about taking a hometown discount. And then he was asked, what's his number one priority? And he didn't say winning. And he didn't say, being the best player on the best team. He said, taking care of my family, which means he's prioritizing money. And then the second thing he says is putting myself in position to be the best wide receiver I can be. That could mean anything. But his top priority is money over winning. And his top priority is not to get a big bag and to win. It's to get the biggest bag and maybe win. But he wants that biggest bag. And I don't think there's any question about that. So he thinks he's a tone setter. He thinks he's a tempo setter. We know he's a blocker. In a lot of ways, he's the perfect fit for this Niner offense. To me, the one factor that didn't come up until the very end of the Pivot podcast was he was asked about what he's going to buy when he gets a contract. And he's like, I'm taking care of mom. And then it came out that mom's a lifelong Niner fan. And even though she's going to be a fan of whatever team her son plays for, she's a lifelong Niner fan. He wants to be a Niner. I think that part is pretty clear at this point. He wants to be a Niner. So as far as, where is this going and when's this getting done? Who knows? We still got a month until camp starts. But according to the reports, Niners had a contract on the table in April that would have paid him $25 million per year. His reps were looking for $27 million at the time. Now the Niners are probably offering 27, 28, and they're looking for something closer to $30 million. I'll stay with my prediction. It gets done at 29 million. I think 29 million is the number, 75 million in total guarantees, maybe 40 to 50 million in fully guaranteed money coming his way. I think it gets done. I think it probably doesn't get done until camp starts. Nothing ever seems like it gets done without some kind of a deadline. That would be my guess here. But that is the latest on Brandon Aiyuk, and you consider yourself completely updated. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles and Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. Thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.